Hello and welcome back again. I really can't believe that I'm doing this for the third time, but I've been bombarded with questions again. A lot of information has been released recently over the last 24 hours, a lot of changes. So this is 3.0. This is an update of the 17th of March 2020. Basically, we're going to be talking about everything today that has come out in the last 24 hours. We'll also be talking about the borders that have closed. Now, we'll go into that in a bit more details. We'll talk and remind you a bit more about the details of people going to supermarkets, people wanting to know if one person can drive another person, etc. So we'll go into that in deeper dives. We'll also be talking about the other offices that are open today, such as the ITV or MOT offices, garages, petrol stations, etc. We'll go into all of this in this video today. We'll also be talking about post office as well, the lockdown that is in England, not as strict as in Spain. And lastly, I've literally just finished watching the president live, writing down all the things that he has said. So hopefully this is now completely up to date. I've just finished watching him about 2 minutes ago. So let's just jump right into it. Now, first of all, I just want to say thank you for everyone who shared the video yesterday. This is a more up-to-date version, so if you can start sharing this one, it will be absolutely fantastic. And if you can start liking, this is how a lot of people get the information out. Right, so the biggest news, of course, is the borders in Spain have now closed. But what does this mean? So the borders have closed for people coming in. The majority of the people are from Portugal and France, of course, driving over the borders. Watching the news today, it's basically people crossing the borders to get either supplies, going to the supermarkets, alcohol, cigarettes, because it is cheaper in Spain. That is now completely closed for people doing that. But where does this leave people trying to go out of Spain? So people can still go out of Spain if you are travelling to your original country. So if you are from the UK and you've come down here via the car and you haven't got a permanent residency in Spain, you can still cross the border. If you're crossing the border to get into France, for example, you will have to have a document. Now, this document, I will actually be putting it in the links below after this video, so you'll have a copy of this. But this is only when you're driving through France. You will need this document, so you'll have to fill out your address. I downloaded it, quickly looked at it, but this will basically be what you will need to get through France if you're driving back from the UK. If you are a permanent resident in Spain and you are trying to get back to the UK for family members, etc., this is also acceptable only in emergency cases, okay? If you're going back for a holiday back to the UK or anything like that, that is not permitted anymore, so you will not be able to pass the border. So don't take that trip up to the north of Spain. So yes, driving through Spain and everything, you can, but of course you need probable cause to be able to travel, okay? So that's the one thing we have to remember. Ferries. So of course, if they've blocked the borders, people have been asking about ferries and what people are going to be doing about the ferries, especially can you come back to Spain, can you go out of Spain, etc. There are 2 or 3 instances where you can travel via ferry. It's exactly the same as before. If you're traveling back to the UK, then yes, you can travel by ferry, okay? You have to have your pass available, so well, it's not a boarding pass, but your ticket to say that you have bought it and you are leaving on this specific date, and you'll have to have proof of address back in the UK. So that is the first thing you must do. If you are in the UK and you are coming back to Spain, where Spain is your residence, then you have to have a proof of residency in Spain, and of course you would have to have your ticket to say that you are coming back into the country where you live and where you reside, okay? So yes, if you're traveling out of the country, it's still possible, but you have to be very, very careful they have all the correct documentation, because if not, you will get stuck. Moving on, flights. Now, this is getting more and more difficult now. So flights are still leaving Spain, but they are restricting to only emergencies, okay? So if you are flying back to the UK because that is where you are from, that's where you reside, that's your residency, yes, you can still travel, yes, there are still flights, but you have to be quick. Now, this has not been confirmed, but there is a lot of talk saying that on Friday they will be stopping most flights coming in and out of Spain, especially for tourists, okay? Now, this actually leads me to my next one. For the Irish out there, if you are Irish or if you have any friends who are Irish who are on holiday in Spain at the moment, they have to get back to Ireland by Thursday, because Friday they are stopping all flights from Spain to Ireland. Okay, so if that is the case, and if that is the case, and they are looking to then to stop all flights flying from Ireland and flying from Spain to each other, then they are going to be stuck here for the 15 days that we are on lockdown, or further if it goes even more. So please, 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 if you have any Irish friends, share this video, share that with them now if you can. If they are in Spain at the moment and they're only on holiday, tell them to get a flight before Thursday, midnight on Thursday, because Friday they will not be able to fly. Now that is official as well. Right, moving on. Now, I touched on this in the previous video. Supermarkets. Supermarkets are still open. They are very, very well stocked, so do not worry, okay? So the supermarket, a lot of people have been asking if more than one person can go. This is not the case. The police have now advised that you will be, you could receive a fine if you have more than 2 people in the car going to the supermarket, pharmacy, etc. Okay? The best advice that I can give, and I've been giving out this advice for, I don't know, for the last 2 days now. The best advice is to get a neighbor or someone who you know who can go to the supermarkets, who can go to the pharmacies for you, okay? If you are not able to drive and you need someone else to drive you, again, do exactly the same. Find someone who can go for you. We've had a lot of instances where it's an elderly couple, one can drive, one has heart problems. If that's the case, you should stay inside. You should not be going out at all. Get your friends, get your neighbours. There are a lot of people messaging myself on the Keystyle page to offer their services. There's some people down in Villamartin, in San Javier, on the resorts as well, La Torre, El Valle, in Fuente Alamo. There are a lot of people offering their services. So put out a message and I'm sure you'll get someone who will be able to help you in these situations, okay? But if you are ill or if you don't have to go for an emergency, go outside, then please don't stay inside. Moving on to the next thing, which is things that are open. We've had a lot of requests of things that are open. Now, this morning from about 9 o'clock onwards, I've been making phone calls to all of these services, trying to see if they are open or if they are closed. If they are open, but they are only working in the premises, but not allowing public to go. So here is what we've got. Petrol stations. Petrol stations are open. The majority of the petrol stations will be open, okay? If you are going to a petrol station, please use the gloves before pumping the fuel, or even better, if there is a tenant there who can pump the fuel for you, let them do it, okay? You do not have to take any contact. The next thing is tobacco shops. Yes, tobacco shops are open. This is by the government. They are still allowed open. There will be rules, of course, put into place where there will be only one person can go in at a time, but that's the same. Pharmacies, yes, they are still open, so you can always go to the pharmacies. Notary office. Now, we had a lot of questions about this, about the notary office, and yes, the notary office is open. My advice, and this is what I got told on the telephone as well this morning, the best advice that they've given is always call beforehand. They normally have someone who speaks English there. So if this is the case, make a phone call to your local notary if you have to go for any reason whatsoever. And if you've got any appointments, make sure they are still kept, okay? So the notary office is still open. The next one was the ITV garages or the MOT garages as well. A lot of requests asking when they are open, if appointments can be made. Yes, ITV garages or MOT garages, they are open. Out of the 5 that I called this morning, 4 of them picked up and 4 of them are open. Now, the case of if you are taking your car there, the best advice that I can give is make an appointment on their website. So you can find them on Google. Just type in ITV garage, San Pedro de Pinatar. You'll find their website. You can make an appointment. That is the best thing that I would recommend that you do. Make an appointment, and then you have proof of where you are going to get your MOT sorted, okay? Once you are there, once you are finished, get a receipt, and as you're going back home, if you are stopped, you've got your receipt, okay? So make sure that is okay. So yes, ITV garages are open. Car rentals and returns. So if you have rented a car, or if you are flying back to the UK and need to drop off your car, or if you need to pick up a car, if you're flying into Spain, car rental services, out of the 4 that I called, all of them were open and all of them were functioning. However, 3 of them have told me they are reducing hours as of Wednesday, tomorrow, okay? So from Wednesday the 18th of March, they will be reducing their hours. Now, the majority of the time, they are opening from 8 o'clock until, I think it was 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock today. And then tomorrow they're reducing, and it'll be from 9 o'clock until 2 o'clock for pick-up and drop-off services. So if you are renting a car, make sure you call them beforehand. Make sure you know that someone is there, because if not, you could be stuck out with a very, very hefty taxi bill. Taxis are still running, okay? They are reduced but to about 40%, but they are still running. So I don't know if the local taxis, you have to call them or to make appointments or anything like that. But yes, taxis are still running, so there will be some at the airport. If you have any symptoms of the coronavirus, a cough or a fever or anything like that, please advise them before going into the taxi. It's just common sense, really. Other things that are open. El Corte Inglés. This was actually a surprise, but I got an email last night. El Corte Inglés is open, but only the supermarkets, Hypercore or Hypercore. So they are open, and they are open from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. So this was actually a big surprise for me, because they're some of the biggest department stores around Spain. And yeah, they're staying open. So the supermarkets will stay open. So if you do have an El Corte Inglés near you, you can always go to these ones as well. Post offices, this is a big request as well. Post offices are open still. Majority of them will be staying open from 9:30 until 12:30. Now, when I say the majority, where I am in Corvera, they only open up from 1:30 until 2 o'clock. I do believe that is still continuing, but it's only for pickup. Now, pickup services, they are still available. And the postal services have basically put out a message saying you should only go to the post office if you are picking up something and if it's an emergency to send something. There should be no other reasons to go to the post office, only for emergency use only, okay? And that is basically it for things that are open. Now, yesterday's video, we touched on dog walking. Yes, you can leave your house and you can take your dog out for a walk, but you should only be going about 50 meters from your property. They should do their business and you should come back home. You've probably seen a lot of videos online of people making taking a walk with a stuffed animal. Yeah, these are very, very funny videos and it keeps us amused, definitely, but you could be stung with a very hefty fine if that's the case. And that gets me on to the next points. Being out and about in this lockdown. So being out and about is not advised, definitely not advised. The police have given a lot of warnings. They've had speakers going around all the resorts that are around here. They've had speakers going through the cities, the towns, the local villages. So please be very careful if you are out. You shouldn't be out at all, but if you do have to go out for any reason whatsoever, please be careful. Make sure you've got proof of address and make sure you have a valid reason for going out as well. Jotting down on the numbers, they've had over 200 fines in the last 24 hours of people that have been out when they shouldn't be, cycling, riding their bikes in the countryside, going for a walk. And being further away from 50 meters from their properties. So 200 fines have been put into place, and there's been 7 arrests already. You might have seen videos already, a lot of people getting arrested. Quite a few of them, unfortunately, are tourists refusing with the lockdown, refusing to cooperate with the police, and yes, they've been taken away and locked up. Right, moving on to the next point. The lockdown has now moved over to England. Now, this is not as strict as Spain, definitely not, but Boris Johnson has basically put into place that the lockdown should be put into place for the elderly and for people who can work from home. Schools are still open, which I find very, very strange because that was the first thing to stop in Spain. All the schools in Madrid were the first to stop, and then it just... it basically expanded to the workplace, and everything just started to close. But in England, no, there is a lockdown for people who do have symptoms, can work from home. You can still go out and walk about. You can go for bike rides and stuff like that. There was the Bath half marathon as well. But please, if you go out, just be careful. We're in the height of it at the moment in Spain. And yeah, it's just being careful. Simple as that. If you are able to go out, just be very, very careful. Right, the third to last thing that we're going to go on to, this was the biggest request, and I know a lot of my friends especially, they were messaging me about this. I've been translating a lot of the documents, I've been doing research. There has only just come out from the president, as I said, about self-employment. Self-employment in Spain is vital. You know, a lot of people who work out here, they are self-employed, because going for a company registration and stuff like that, sometimes it is not worth it. So you have to go self-employed. Here's the biggest update. There is going to be financial backing for self-employment, okay? So the case is, if you are self-employed, you have to speak to your solicitor or lawyer, the person who does your books. They will know more information about this. I'm just repeating what I've heard from the president on the news about half an hour ago, but this is what has been put into place. So if you are self-employed, there will be backing, and you should be getting up to 70% of your annual wage, sorry, not your annual wage, your monthly wage that you give yourself. Then this is what you should be getting back. This should be from about, when it started, the lockdown, up to 6 months. So you should be getting about 70%, which is fantastic. I was thrilled to hear this, that they're actually backing a lot of the self-employment. So that's fantastic. And then from 6 months onwards, if this continues, then it will be knocked down to 50% onwards, okay? But it will continue from there. Now, this is a new system, so it's not going to be going ahead straight away. However, in the next week, I would say this should be implemented with everyone who is self-employed. So if that is the case, fantastic. Thumbs up for the president for making this happen. I think that's really, really going to help us. There's no news yet about if they're going to be postponing the fees, the self-employment fees. So I'm still waiting to hear some news about that. And if I do, I'll make sure I update it in a video. But in general, the government are going to be putting 200 million euros into the economy. And I think that's fantastic. So that's a lot of money going into the economy to help people who are self-employed, who have lost their jobs, etc. That is going to be very, very good. Now, for people who are still working, yes, it is legal that your bosses can still ask you to work, but there are only certain cases that you should be working. If you cannot work from home, and it is necessary that you still go into work, then yes, you can still go into work. And the boss has to give you a valid reason and proof that you have to go in as well. So this is one thing that we've had many phone calls coming in, very sorry. If this is the case, and if you are employed by someone at the moment, maybe they will be putting you on temporary leave. Now, if this is the case, it'll be the same as self-employment. You'll be getting 70% of your wage up to 6 months, and then 50% of your wage onwards. This is basically from the government. This will be the government funding your temporary leave, not your employer. Okay, so that's really, really good to hear as well. Now, as the president said, no one will be losing their house. If you can't make mortgage payments, they're still working with the banks and everything for mortgage payments to postpone them, etc. But no one will be losing their house in this time, okay? So they've made it illegal for someone to kick someone out of their house whilst this lockdown is going ahead. So I think that is very, very good to hear. So if you cannot make your mortgage payments, then you please just ask your neighbor who speaks Spanish to help you, okay? This should be really, really important for anyone who is struggling financially, that they speak to a local representative for the government, okay? There is help out there, and they are trying to help, so I think that's really good. That is basically it. Now, symptoms. I put this in my last video, but I never got onto it. Now, if you are currently in Spain and you have to go back to the UK, then the majority of the articles that I've read, traveling to another country, you should self-isolate for at least 10 days, up to 15 days, okay? This is just a precaution if you can. If you can't, then please take the precaution of wearing a mask, gloves, if you have to go out into public, touch certain things, etc. But the symptoms of coronavirus, for anyone who is out here in Spain and they are unsure, maybe they haven't heard or they've been given mixed messages, etc., these are the symptoms of the coronavirus. Dry cough. If you have a dry cough that keeps persisting to just annoy you like a tickle. A fever, so make sure you're taking your temperature as well if you have a fever. And if you're suffering or it's hard to breathe, these are the symptoms of the coronavirus. Now, what should you do if you have these symptoms? The first thing you should be doing is isolate yourself. Even if you have family in the same house as you or in the same apartment as you, isolate yourself in a bedroom and keep yourself there. The next thing you should do is call the proper authority, the emergencies, okay? So the best thing that you can do is to call 112, okay? Now 112 is the national emergency line. If you if you don't speak Spanish, you ask for someone who does speak English. The majority of the time there is someone there who does speak English, okay? So ask for someone who speaks English. Say that you might have symptoms of the coronavirus. What they will then do, they will then administer a home test. They will come to your house and they will do a home test, okay? Do not let anyone else into the property unless you have called them beforehand, okay? There have been some cases of thieves going and saying that you're doing mandatory tests for people who haven't even asked or requested it. This is not the government doing it, okay? The best thing you should do is call the number. If you know that they are going to be coming to your house, just still stay in isolation, okay? But be very, very careful. Now, what they will do, they will administer a test. This test can take up to 24 hours to come back with the feedback. But if the symptoms are stable and safe, so if you are able to continue in self-isolation, then you will stay at home and you will be self-isolated for at least 14 days. If it is more severe, you're struggling to breathe and you feel like the fever is getting worse, the cough is getting worse, then you'll be taken to hospital and you'll be put into quarantine, okay? That's basically what would happen if you have the symptoms, okay? Now, that is it. I think I've done, I think I've covered everything there. Now, if you do have any questions, pop them in the comments below. I'll try to get to all of them as possible. But what I have done is set up a new page, okay? Because I have actually been going live on Keystyle Properties. This is my my business that I have with my dad. This should not be the proper way that we get this information across, but we've got almost 8,000 likes on this page, so I thought it was a better way to get this information out there. But the one thing that you can do for me, especially, is to go to Coronavirus Spain Information. Okay, it's a Facebook page that I set up. I'll be putting it into the comments below afterwards as well. But just search for Coronavirus Spain Information. I've set up this page specifically for people who have questions, and then it's kind of separated from the business, so it can actually be a lot easier to determine if it's a client or if it's someone asking a question, okay? So please share this video, like this video as much as you can. Thank you for all the comments. Really, it really does help me to put all of this information together. I know a lot of people are liking this information, so I really appreciate your feedback on this. So thank you. Right, that's it for me today. But again, I will hopefully see you tomorrow with some more updates. Bye.